She may not have a seat in the legislature yet, but as Queen's Park resumes, and as you heard there, Ontario Premier Doug Ford and his government is focused on newly minted Ontario Liberal Leader Bonnie Crombie, painting her as a champion of the federal carbon tax. We asked for an interview with the Premier, but his office declined. Bonnie Crombie is the leader of the Ontario Liberals. She's with us now live. Hi, Ms. Crombie. Good pleasure to have you on the program in this capacity. Thanks for making the time.
Hi, Vassy. Nice to see you again, and thank you for having me.
Listen, the Premier, and you know this well by now, calls you the queen of the carbon tax. In your press conference today, you wouldn't take a position on the federal carbon pricing regime. Do you support it?
So, Vassy, I'm going to be the queen of people's hearts and fight for them, fight for better affordability, fight for affordable housing, universal health care, and, of course, a climate change action plan. Doug Ford is desperate. This is another stunt which is designed to help deflect from their failures, from their reversals, actually from criminal investigations going on by the RCMP into the Greenbelt scandal, as well as those sole source contracts into Service Ontario, where they gave U.S. Large companies sole source contract, and the privatization of our healthcare. So again, this is just Doug Ford being desperate, trying to deflect from their record.
Does that mean, though, that you are not going to answer questions about your own position? I mean, I take your point on the politics of all of this, but carbon pricing is an essential part of the federal government's plan to combat the effects of climate change. Voters in Ontario will be looking to you to find out what your plan is to do the same thing. Are you supportive of the federal pricing regime?
Vassy, there are many tools to combat climate change. And what I will say to you is Liberals are going to do our homework. I mean, I'm a student of the great Hazel McCallie, and if she taught me one thing, that was you need to do your homework. And by that, I mean we're going to meet with scientists, stakeholder groups, community groups, our residents, Liberal Party members, my caucus, and we will develop a very strong but progressive plan to tackle climate change.
Respectfully, why do you need to consult further on a pricing regime that has been in place since 2019? Is there not enough evidence one way or the other to enable you to make a determination on where you stand?
I think consultation is very important. I think doing your homework. I'm a new leader. I have a new caucus around me. I've just been elected. It's very important to be out there, meeting with community groups, meeting with scientists, stakeholders, and of course, Liberal Party members. And we will come up with a very solid, strong, progressive plan that will fight climate change. There are many weapons in the arsenal. As you know, I just came out of a very competitive leadership race, and I presented a 13-point plan that had many items which will be considered, including electricity grids and rebates for the right kind of programs. So there are lots to consider, Vassy, and we as a team will make that determination after we do our consultation and after we do our homework. So we don't have to be like Doug Ford and reverse our policies, because this is a government driving in reverse.
Do I take from your comments, Ms. Crombie, when you talk about the number of tools available, that you don't necessarily feel a consumer carbon tax is necessary to have a serious policy to combat climate change?
As I said, there are many tools to combat climate change. When I look at my record as mayor of Mississauga, in 2019, we declared a climate change emergency, and we changed our ways at the city, and we had the very first LEED silver, LEED gold fire hall. We are re-energizing our fleets. We are moving to electric vehicles. We had a number of initiatives to combat climate change, and I'm very proud of my record, and I stand on it. But now is a different time, and I have a new caucus, and we are going to work together, and we're going to do the consultation that's needed, and we're going to do our homework as we should before we announce any new policies.
I get that, and I'm certainly not asking you to announce any new policies. I'm just simply asking where you stand as leader of the Liberal Party and a former federal Liberal. Are you supportive of the federal government's key environmental policy? It's not something small, right? And again, I take it against the backdrop of all the politics you outlined around this right now. I still think it's fair for Ontarians to know where you stand, and I'm not sure why you need more consultation to determine whether you think carbon pricing is effective in mitigating the damages of climate change.
Right. So I appreciate the question, and as you know, or maybe you don't, I'm going to be on tour because I don't have a seat in the legislature yet, and this week I'll be coming to Ottawa, in fact, so maybe we can speak live and in person. And it's very important to tour the province and get to know people and hear their views and their perspectives, as well as meet Liberals across the province, once again, as I did as leader, and meet with stakeholder groups and scientists and my own caucus before we come to a decision. We are going to do our homework, and we are going to develop a very progressive and a very strong plan that will combat climate change.
And how long do you anticipate you will consult before you determine what your position on a carbon tax is?
There's a lot of time between now and the next election, and we'll have a very fulsome platform, and climate change will be a key ingredient of that platform, you can be assured.
Aren't you opening yourself up, though, with great respect, Ms. Crombie, to the criticism that the Premier is levying at you by providing a vacuum? I mean, it's very similar, I'm thinking of what's going on federally, right? Insofar as the Conservatives have yet to table their plan. They say wait for the next election. And the Liberals, the federal Liberals, are saying that means that they don't have a plan to combat climate change. Aren't you
Vassy, as you know,
providing for the opportunity for Doug Ford to say that you are the queen of the carbon tax? I mean, again, I don't know what more evidence you need to determine whether you support the policy or not.
Well, the Premier made this decision when he cancelled cap and trade, a policy of the former government. So there is a carbon tax in play right now. So once again, this is an opportunity for him to deflect and distract from the real issues that are affecting Ontarians today. Ontarians are concerned that they can't afford their rent. They can't find a house, let alone afford their mortgage. That there are no affordable houses to be bought, to be built. They're not meeting their housing targets, in fact. Healthcare is on the way to become privatized. And I know as Ontarians, we all want a very strong universal healthcare system. And these are the things that matter to Ontarians. And he's deflecting from very real issues that Ontarians are concerned about by focusing on this. It's just another political stunt. He's desperate to deflect from his failures, his reversals, his scandals, and the insider deals. This is a government that is under RCMP investigation because of what happened in the Greenbelt. This is a government who gave a sole source to a very large, two very large billion-dollar American corporations for Service Ontario. And this is a government on the path to privatizing our healthcare. These are issues that Ontarians are concerned about. Having an affordable way of life and finding housing that they can afford. These are the real issues that he should be concerned about.
Certainly, I take your point, Ms. Crombie, but for many Ontarians, there is an intersection between the issues of affordability and the carbon tax more generally. And I think that's informing their ask of you to assert a position. The question I had posed was, how long do you plan to consult before you come to a decision on where you stand? Is it until the next election?
We will make the right decision. We will come together as a team, as a caucus. We will consult with Liberal Party members, but more importantly, stakeholders and scientists. And we will come to the right decision the first time because we'll have done our homework.
Not until the next election, though, to be clear.
I didn't say that. We're going to do our homework and we will come to a clear path moving forward. But this is an attempt for the government. This is an attempt by the government to distract from the real issues, Vassy.
Just really quickly before I let you go, Ms. Crombie, I heard you talk today about the possibility of running in a by-election, whenever that ends up being called, in Milton. How strongly is that a possibility for you, and any hesitancy given how closely tied you are to Mississauga?
Yeah, it's certainly a concern of mine that I'm closely tied to Mississauga, but it's a by-election which would open up a seat for me. So it's something I'm looking at very seriously and very closely. I have made a commitment to the party that I'll stay on the road and meet people and consult with Liberals. And it's very important I get out to every community and meet with people, particularly the small towns, the rural communities. I want to be an advocate for rural issues, farming issues for that matter, northern issues. I loved my time on tour as a leadership candidate, and I can't wait to get back on the road. So I have made that commitment. I think it's very important that people get to know me, who I am, what I stand for, what my values are, and I have to weigh that against the opportunity of gaining a seat in Milton.
So you don't feel a huge amount of pressure to get in the legislature, is that fair?
I don't, but it is an interesting seat. I'm very familiar with their issues since they were proximate to the city of Mississauga. And I love the people of Milton, and I have been an advocate and fighting for all-day two-way GO train service on that Milton line for about the past 20 years. So it would be an interesting seat to step into. So it is something I am seriously considering, Vassy.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Ms. Crombie, I appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.